So this video, I'm going to walk you through my thought process about something very specific. And so slavery ended in this country in the 1860s. And then we have like a generation removed from that. We have a lot of HBCUs are founded. And then from that, we also get Greek letter organizations. So we all know enslaved persons were not allowed to read. They were unalived, they were tortured, they were brutalized. So just a generation removed from that, you get to go to college. Not only do you get to read, you get to go to college. Now, currently, in 2025, the statistic is only 38% of Black people enroll into college. So think about how rare it was from a generation just removed from not being able to read would be able to go to college, okay? It has never made sense to me that you are already in such a small minority that you then chose to further isolate yourself. Because there's always been this issue of elitism with Greek letter organizations, but that thought process has never made sense. So I looked up, you can look up on Howard's website, you can look up who was literally enrolled. I think I looked up the wrong year. I did 1906 to 1907, but I probably should have did 1905 to 1906. But there was only 1,011 people enrolled, and that's including their graduate programs of law and medicine. So only about 600 students on campus, and you decided that's not elite enough for me. But not we'll talk about, them niggas was gay. Why do you need a private group for people, for men? Let's call a thing. Like, of course I'm doing this because that young man has been unalived. I want to use the M word, and that happens very frequently. But a lot of people are getting on here and saying that's not what the founders wanted. That's not what the founders wanted. What did your founders want? You're a generation removed from people not even being able to read, and you decide to further isolate yourself. What was that? What was that? Kwame Ture has a speech where he talks about why was the first thing after slavery that we did was go mimic white institutions. And he was referring to colleges, and I'm referring to Greek letter organizations. Why was the first thing we did was mimic white institutions? And to do so, to alienate yourself from other Black people. And then it's not even that the people that you're alienating yourself from weren't already elite, because you're a generation removed from not even being able to read and you're in college. Like, what was the intention? And yes, I said 1906. That's not Omega Sci-Fi. I know. I'm talking about the inception of Greek letter organizations for Black people. It never made sense to me. It never made sense to me. And yes, I did want to pledge, but for my university, they had a white girl that was going to be my dean. And that's another thing. Like, absolutely not. But let's talk about, people being unalived. And that's of course the most egregious example. I think if your organization has ever unalived somebody, your organization should not exist. And I think that's all of them. Sorry. You should not have the risk of losing your life to join a social club. It does not make sense. You cannot murder Black bodies and say you're for the Black community. I don't care who you are, what you are. I don't care. I don't care. You cannot do that. And the fact of the matter is, the process used to be very public until y'all started unaliving people. After people were unalived, that's when the process got secretive, because they wanted plausible deniability of saying, oh, that person wasn't online. And then the craziest thing about it to me, because I've known people who have been hospitalized by pledging, they be trying not to give you your letters. That young man literally has lost his life, and they're not going to posthumously give him his letters. He literally died for that organization, and they're not going to give him his letters. I think that's insane. I think that's insane. Also, I know people that have done like grad chapters. So these are grown adults. We talk a lot about, oh, it's kids and a lot of that. I know grown adults, grad chapter people that have let people go through the entire process. And because they didn't like them, but they wanted to take their money, told them the day before everybody was told that they were going to cross, that they couldn't cross. Like, it's a petty. I don't see the positives. I don't, because guess what? I can do community service without having letters attached to it. The fact that you can't do community service without letters being attached to it says more about your character. It really does. It irritates me to no end, and to see people still being trafficked, unalived, traumatized, sodomized. Like, it's, they need to be banned. All of them. I don't care. You cannot, like, the culture that produced whatever positives you can pull out of your butt also produced all the negatives that we see every day. It has to go. It has to go. And you can talk about some, oh, we talk about maid culture. We're not talking, everything has to go. Because I know for a fact that y'all went around campuses beating up people because they had pink and green backpacks and weren't K's. Like, y'all are a gang. Like, this need to be a RICO charge, for real. And everybody top to bottom needs to be locked up. I don't care. These organizations are not for black people. They are not. And then you even know that because I've already talked a little bit about it, about having non-black people. Like, the whole acronym is BGLO. And then y'all have non-black people that you overlook black people. That they have to go. They have to go. They have to go.
I agree with this wholeheartedly because we all know Du Bois and Booker T had the whole talented 10th thing, that there was a section of elite society that will be able to bring up all of the race because they were so talented that it was their burden to, just help all the lowly people that couldn't be college educated, even though we already know multiple barriers that deal with that. But my biggest issue, I think, with Greek letter organizations is that Black liberation is not a part of their core tenets. It's not. They want to align as close to whiteness as they can. That's why there's nepotism in the organizations. That's why you have to be able to pay certain amounts of money. And I really, truly hate that every time you try to have a constructive conversation regarding the harm that Black Greek letter organizations have done to the actual Black community, not only do non-Black people who are Greek and think they have a voice in this conversation speak over Black people just because they are GDIs, but it's allowed, and everybody tries to rest on things that were accomplished in the 1960s. Like, why is the best thing that you can think of something that happened 60 years ago? Like, we have so much gang violence, pew pew, we need pew pew control. We have very low literacy rates. And the thing about it is, these organizations bring in nationally more money than some small countries. They could do so much more if that was their priority. It's just not. I just don't trust any Black organization that the government is cool with existing, because we know what the government does to any organization that they think will give Black people progress. And the fact that the government is cool with them existing shows that they know they're not going to do anything. They don't care about liberating Black people. They don't care truly about Black plight. That's why we have so many issues in this country. Like, even SNCC The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee had a CIA file on them. And nonviolent is in the name. They know these genteel, respectable Negroes ain't gonna do nothing for black people. That's why they're able to exist with no pushback. And like, it's wild to me that we even have to have these conversations. There was a series of articles by Lawrence Ross. He had 3 articles in The Roots where he like details the traditional pledging process to how it came to be what it is now, where people are continually getting unalived, people are getting trafficked, people like, you know, the heinous things that we see today. And it's a good read. If anybody wants to see it, I will definitely, I mean, I've given you the author and the publication, but I can definitely give you that article. But like, it's crazy that the first people that were unalived by these organizations, and I put in NPHC as an umbrella because every single organization, I believe, has harmed someone in one way or another, and majority of them have unalived black people. That's a crazy statistic. That you're a part of an organization that has unalived black people by simply wanting to be a part. Not like, it's even when we talk about gangs, at least they are firing at a op. These are people that you wanted to be in community with and you emmed them. That's not insane to you? There's no there's no pause to that. I think that's insane. Like, I think that's truly insane, crazy, diabolical, actually. And like, you can have conversations with people in Greek letter organizations, and all they'll do is boil it down to, oh, you must have not finished the process, or somebody must have denied you. I've never once been to an interest meeting. I've never once put down money to pledge an organization, and I still believe these things. Now what?
I've actually been formally invited at multiple universities, HBCUs, and well, it's not a PWI, it's a multicultural organization, but formally invited. So for that to be your first thing to say to me, because I give you pushback about, hey, what are y'all actually doing for the black community? Because like, I look around and I don't see any progress. I look around and it's very destitute. I look around, what are the program, like what are the tangible things? And the only thing you can talk about is something that happened in 1960 something or another. But like I said, I think I said this was going to be long. All my videos are long. I want to talk about some of the things that make a cult. You have to have charismatic founders or leaders, right? So, I mean, part of the process is learning the founders and learning your chapter's founders. Now, why would that be important to you if they weren't charismatic? Like, why would you deify them? Another characteristic is they isolate you. You can see in this conversation how people have talked over GDIs. And you can also talk about how the process is literally being isolated from other people. And then you can also point to whenever somebody renounces, how people react. Yeah. Another characteristic is the abuse. You see how people are excusing this. The first thing out of people's mouth was to defend organizations instead of mourning a child in a tragedy. And yes, he's 20, but I'm going to say a child because I'm his elder. Which also goes right into unquestioning loyalty, which is also a characteristic of a cult. Like, I mean, there are multiple things that say that there's 3 central tenets to a cult, or 5 or 7. Either way, they're not beating the allegations.